Welcome back, everybody, to another live stream, and we've got a fun show tonight. I think we're going to be calling this the Alternative Cycling Network Happy Hour. Who do we have in here? We've got Mike from Locked In and Eric from Spindat. Say hi, everyone.
Hello, everyone.
Hey guys, it's good to be back.
Yeah, honestly, I've been looking forward to this all week. I had such a blast last week, just commiserating with people that can feel the pain.
Yeah, you're right.
Our own individual pain cave, yes.
I know. This is actually group therapy, and you guys get to participate. So
yeah, listen in as we complain about cycling and YouTube in general.
Right. Right. So if we're for you guys in the chat, if you can let us know if we're sounding good, looking good, at least sounding good.
Well, yeah.
Big on the looking good.
Yeah. So today we are gonna talk about the big topic of gravel. Has it jumped the shark? But I think before we go there, I mean, can we establish that gravel bikes are actually a thing? Because I feel like in my comments, people are still like, oh, that's just this made up thing. What do you guys think?
I think for me, it really changed so much when it initially became out, because I even did a series on this steel bike that I thought was a gravel bike, which I thought back in the day, oh, it clears a 35C tire. That's a gravel bike. And now it's like, oh, if it doesn't clear a 50, like it's not a gravel bike. Like I think it's morphed into this category that it's starting now to have its own niche, but I think now the category itself is established and now it's starting to kind of segment.
Yeah. What do you think, Eric?
I still think anything can be a gravel bike. But yeah, there's certainly a place to purchase something called, what I used to call stuff at the bike shop, a gravel bike, but certainly you can still use an old big tire touring bike or a cross bike or a mountain bike. Like all of those, if you want to call it a gravel bike, sure. But maybe name wise, maybe it isn't one. But I'd hate for someone to feel self-conscious about riding gravel roads or single track or something on something that's not a real gravel bike. So.
Right.
Yeah.
Sure.
I mean, I think there's a little bit of semantics going on, because yes, every bike can be ridden on gravel, and I agree. Touring bikes make excellent gravel bikes, and some gravel bikes are actually leaning towards that geometry. But as it's kind of evolved and matured, if you will, it's starting to take a specific form that I think is different enough from a cross bike or a touring bike.
Certainly. Yeah, they do have their nuanced differences for sure.
Yeah.
My argument has always been about geometry, and I don't think I've brought it up enough, that for you to understand those geometry differences, you do need to ride a lot of different types of bike.
Mm-hmm.
Because I remember when I only rode BMX and I got on a road bike and I was like, what is this? What a bizarre feeling bicycle. No bikes feel like this. Turns out BMXs are the weirdest.
Right.
Oh, yeah. I think that's for me the same thing. I had a giant TCX for a long time that I loved, just recently sold because of the new build that I'm doing. It's the easiest way I've related to people who are coming from road or somewhat cycling background is the difference between a race bike and an endurance bike. It's kind of the same thing with the cyclocross versus gravel.
Yes.
Because that's where I'm noticing the biggest difference as far as I have all my fit data and I'm translating it. I'm just oh man, the stack is a lot, higher, and all these other things. At the end of the day, that's the easiest way to translate it from somebody who's coming from a road or base cycling background. Is it's just gonna be slightly more upright. It's gonna be something more comfortable. Potentially there are gravel and cyclocross bikes that clear the same tire. It's really going to be down to that minute body position, and then obviously mounts and other things. But I think at the end of the day, to give the 20-second pitch or whatever to explain it to someone, it's race bike, endurance bike, potentially more tire clearance for more comfort, and that's kind of it.
Right. Do you guys find that people still fight you guys in the comments about whether gravel bikes exist or not, or is that just my commenters?
It might just be yours.
Yeah.
Yeah. No, I don't run into that very much.
No. I
No.
get all sorts of things like, it's a conspiracy by the bike industry to sell you more stuff.
I mean, it's all a conspiracy to sell you more stuff.
Well, yeah. That's what anything that's out there. That's the whole point. Yeah.
Yeah, that's right.
I do think like in the early days of, when people were just doing, Trans Iowa and before like Dirty Kansas really took off, people rode what they had. And that could be like a cross country mountain bike. That could be a monster cross bike, a cross bike. And, back then there wasn't the pre-established category yet. So it was very like free form, come as you are. And over time it's kind of settled.
Yeah.
For better or for worse.
I think it's a lot of, at least for me, I kind of like the aspect of almost underbiking because I'm not like the best bike handler, like technically wise. So there's a lot of trails I'll do. I'm like, if I had a full suspension or even a hardtail, this would be probably really boring.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
Where like it's slightly more exciting, if not really exciting, again, because of skill set.
Right.
I think that's really where it falls into where you can kind of ride everything. Depending on your skill set, there's things that you might not want to ride that you need to hike or walk down, but
right.
You can kind of do basically anything that's not a traditional like downhill trail. And you can kind of get it done. It just might be a little slower and,
Slow is not a bad thing.
Yeah. Right. Right.
You get
I think
way less hurt when you're going slow.
Yeah. True. Very true. Yeah.
Yeah. I think the notion of underbiking is a little like underappreciated, because typically like kind of the wise assery I get in the comment section is like, why don't you just use a mountain bike? And it's like, well, because it would be overkill. It'd be like cutting a cake with a chainsaw. Like, yes, it'll do it, but
can be done. Yes.
Yeah.
We're like, there's a local trail to me that's, hero gravel. Like you could probably do it in a 32, no problem, and lower PSI. And I'll see people with full suspension mountain bikes. And I'm just like, this is like you pedaling down the street, like there's no pizzazz to this ride. Like you're out here, you're in nature. You've probably either driven or ridden X amount of miles. There's, like make it interesting a little bit.
Yeah.
Yeah. I think there's certainly a pain aspect to like the long gravel rides that I think everyone likes a little bit. So I think that the bigger bikes are certainly take away from that a little bit, but whatever. But again, like I mostly just want to see people out riding bikes and not be so worried about it. But
true,
obviously I'm not immune to that. Like if I was to go ride the gravel trails that I've been riding right now on that Scott that I had this week, like I'd be embarrassed.
Well, yeah, totally. Yeah.
But like I don't want people to take that the wrong way and not ride. It's just like I don't know. Like I'm really self-conscious about myself. And I put myself on the internet. What do you expect?
Right. No, I've had that at a trail like downhill section where it's like it's super ruddy, kind of. And I had a guy that had a 27.5 plus hardtail, 120 mil in the front, and I was like, "Hey man, go ahead. Like I'm gonna be slower than you." He's like, "What are you talking about, man? Like go for it." And like I dropped him, and I'm like, "What? Like, like I'm happy you're out, but like, come on, like."
So Eric, you did a video this week on why gravel bikes are popular. Can you summarize that really quickly?
I said it was because they're the type of bike, and I don't think I made this clear enough. The type of bike that look right everywhere, and that you can ride in anything on them. So like you can be the Lycra guy, you can be the hoodie guy, you can be the jean guy, you can be like the weird guy who wears like, cat sweatpants, and like, there isn't an established look to gravel bikes yet. So you can wear whatever you want, be comfortable, and jump into it that way, and ride anywhere. Like whether you're going to the grocery store or you're doing 100K, if you're doing it in jeans, you don't look weird. And I think like, and a lot of people hit me up in the comments and they're like, no, that's not why gravel is popular. It's because of cars. Like there's less cars. And I'm like, no, that is a garbage answer because there have always been places you could ride without cars. Always.
Right. Yeah.
But as a new rider, like I guarantee you as a new uncomfortable rider, me telling them, you know, you can wear Lycra on this bike and there's no cars. There might be some other people around. How do you feel about that? They'd be like, well, I don't really want to be around other people wearing Lycra right now because I never know that. Or you can say you wear whatever you want anywhere. They're going to say, I like that. Let's do that.
Yeah. Yeah, totally agree. Yeah, I did a video on like how t-shirt rides like are a big thing for me now. Like where I was the roadie back in the day, or fixed gear guy, then roadie. So I got like all into Lycra, and I'm like, now it's like, no, I love the t-shirt ride. It's brought me back into like this love of it, and not having this like, oh, I gotta find a kit and whatever. It's like, oh no, I can throw my jeans on and like t-shirt and go.
Yeah.
And I think it's a potentially big draw. I think it's like having the cyclocross community, but like mobile.
But yeah, you've got like the city guys and the like racers, everybody. Like right now, everybody looks cool on a gravel bike in anything. Like you can be the kitted up dude, you can be the G. Like you, I think they're the most, broad for whatever it is you're going to do. There are people who get groceries on them. There's people who put racks on them. There's people who slam stems on them. And like that could be the same bike across the board, and it can look totally different. And those 3 different people could be wearing different stuff. So,
yeah, that was the big appeal for me. And one of the reasons we ended up doing DK was looking at the stories around the event and gravel riding. It was kind of at least a couple years ago, more so. I feel like I come as you are. It didn't quite like inherit all the rules from road cycling quite yet. It was still like this real just mishmash of things. But YouTube comments, what do you guys think? Why is gravel popular? Leave it in the comment section and we'll pop it up on the screen.
It's not because of cars. What's wrong?
No. See, I kind of like I disagree a little bit. Like I feel like we live in Montana and there's very few paved roads. And those paved roads get used by everyone. So like people that are commuting, heavy goods vehicles, but there's also a ton of logging roads and forest access roads. And if you've ever ridden in Montana, everyone drives at like 80 miles per hour. So,
also it's like California. Yeah.
Pretty much.
Yeah.
But
I think that like my big appeal, like even with why I never got into mountain biking, but I think for me, like with road, initially, the reason I liked it is because I could go out of my house and go do a ride. And I think gravel is like that perfect mix of like, if you're going to do a 1 mile to 20 mile way to get to a trail, it's not horrendous like it would be on a full suspension mountain bike. Like you can enjoy that part of it and get warmed up, whatever you want to call it, and then go hit the trail and have a blast and then cruise home. I think that's to me is that dual purpose mass appeal to where it's like, if you're going to do 50-50 trail road or whatever, I think that's what I like, that I don't have to drive anywhere to like go do something. It's like, if I didn't want to get there to add the mileage in, you can. Obviously you can still drive to the trailhead and go, but I think that's really where, for me, I love to like roll out of my house, roll back in and be done.
Yeah.
I think that's really where it shines, because there's also the points to where this has totally happened to me, especially when I moved to a new area. You go ride and you're like, oh, that looks cool. On your road bike, you're like, well, I got to go swap bikes and go do something else. You're on a gravel bike, you're like, oh yeah, hop off, maybe drop a couple PSI and go see what it is. And it could be absolutely awesome. And it could be the worst thing you've ever ridden. Doesn't matter, but you can still do it like somewhat safely, where you and so I think that's really where it opens up opportunity, and you start, at least for me, started looking for opportunities like that of, oh, I've never tried that, or going down there, let's go do it, because you have the option. Where if I'm on 28C slick road tires, I'm probably not going to go try it. Eric, I know you probably would.
Sorry,
Like, but that is different.
like the comments pop up and what just came up is really good.
Oh yeah, I like that. Hybrids get a lot of hate.
Yeah.
All right, Josh,
Yeah,
you're not wrong.
Okay, so let's talk about this, because I get this a lot. It's like people say, well, gravel bikes, if you look at the geometry, they're just hybrid bikes. True or false? And like, why? If that's true, then why did hybrids not take off and gravel bikes have?
They're close. They're close, but like if you've ever, like, I've taken a lot of old hybrids and I've tried to make road bikes out of them, and I've done it a lot of times, and there is a difference. Build quality for sure.
Yeah.
I'm not super picky on build quality, but when it comes to like when you've got a perfectly straight wheel and it's still off to the left and the chain stays, and you're like, like, this wheel is perfect. I don't understand. And like, when you buy a bike that is supposed to be better, you get straighter frame sets.
Yeah.
And usually a gravel bike.
You like that one?
That was good. That was really good. Are we gonna start like the hashtag of like make hybrids great again? Like, is that what's gonna happen? Like, is that
you can get good hybrids? You can, and like you'll see that from some companies. Like they'll literally have a flat bar version of their gravel bike, and then they'll just name it something else. Like Giant is sort of guilty of this.
Mm-hmm.
Like Felt was guilty of it forever, like for a really long time. I can't think of any other ones off the top of my head, but like,
well, I mean, Poseidon's selling their X with a flat bar option.
Yeah, like that's a hybrid.
Yeah,
to me, like some people want to call that a flat bar gravel bike. Okay,
I think it depends on the platform, because like for me, like the Poseidon X, for instance, is a little more racy geometry than a hybrid's going to be. Yeah. So like, so that I think warrants the name set, but I think. Yeah, it's without getting all ultra technical with that. It's like, yeah, you're not gonna get. I mean, unless for a hybrid, you're not gonna get like a through axle disc brake hydraulic mechanical hybrid unless you're at this super high end price point, and that kind of defeats the like budget way to get into it.
That's right.
Mm-hmm.
And I think there's going to be sacrifices, and I think it'd be really interesting for us to maybe figure out later of like. Where is the the compromise to convert one, because like there is right now is like guys who are taking hardtail mountain bikes and converting to a gravel bike. There is you shorten the stem to basically nothing because the top tube's so long. There's things like that. I wonder if there's a way we could figure out how to go the opposite direction. You can comment below.
I meant this one.
yeah, exactly. Yeah.
I think, and then I imagine there are some like nuanced geometry differences. Like I think bottom bracket height is probably a big part of it.
Yeah. Makes sense.
Like, depending on what that company wants to achieve with their gravel bike, if you're going to be like in an area like where I'm at, like our trail is very rooty and technical. So like I want a higher bottom bracket. Like every time I read a review and everybody raves about really low bottom bracket heights, I'm like, ugh. Like it sounds like me going over the bars.
Yeah, this is pedal strike. Yeah,
it's like a really bad pedal strike, and then I'm like, ugh! You're kind of going around everywhere on your front wheel for a second that feels like an eternity.
Right.
Like completely focused on what rock you're going to hit next.
Right. What's the softest looking one?
Yeah, like that's what a low bottom bracket is to me. So like, I shop if I'm going to shop for something and I have a choice, I'll search for something that has a higher bottom bracket with like maybe a steeper head tube like that. Those are the bikes I've always liked. I think that comes from BMX. Like that is what those bikes are.
Yeah.
So do you think hybrids never took off just because there wasn't like a racing genre behind it? Like there wasn't like hybrid racing and because I don't think so. I think to some extent the popularity of gravel is driven by the events.
I think initially it was kind of like the everyman bike, which technically the hybrid is. The hybrid's a commuter. That's the hybrid's like I want to go to school and I don't want to wear Lycra. That's what you got. And I think now the gravel bike is kind of fit in there for someone who's like I might like this, or I kind of like this. I want something that's not the stigma of like a road bike where like everyone thinks you're going to be like hunched over, like, like your handlebars are going to be like 4 feet below your saddle. Like that's what everybody assumes. I think that's where the gravel bike kind of fits in. It's like somebody who wants a practical bike like they would, which is typically the hybrid consumer. Mm-hmm. Somebody who wants something that's more comfortable because they see the little tires because they're used to beach cruiser tires. So they see a gravel bike and like, oh, that looks comfortable because they're not 28s or whatever else. And I think that kind of bridges that gap. And then the opportunity of like, people usually know, they see the road bikers and they assume, oh, they're going 100 miles every time they see somebody. Mm-hmm. So I think the opportunity of, well, if I get this bike, it looks comfortable. The tires aren't super small. I can still throw a rack and stuff on it and go to school, but I can go longer distance because I see guys, to the untrained eye, a gravel bike, a drop bar gravel bike, and a road bike kind of look the same. Right. So when they kind of merge, I think all of those things together, I think that's where like it becomes the perfect storm or the perfect bike to a more mass appeal.
Yeah. I think the problem with hybrids for the longest time was like, they have the same stigma as like a minivan. Like if you think about like all of us want out of a car, it's like, okay, lots of seats, lots of storage, nothing gets wet, pretty good on gas. Oh man, like doesn't look too bad, and then they design it. They take exactly what you just said and you look at it and you're like, oh man, it's just the worst.
Yeah.
I hate it so much. Can you just make it a little bit terrible for one of the things? And like, I think that will really fix the problem.
I think that's completely it. It's like, it can potentially answer all the problems, but like the aesthetic is always going to be apparent. Like I used to manage a bike shop and literally had somebody like, oh, I love this bike. Just don't like the color or whatever it was like that. And I get it. Like my philosophy is like, if you're slow, you might as well look good. Like that's it. Like
there's more time for people to look at you.
Yeah. That's 100% of the thing. Like I did a bike ride with, it was Mosaic and Stinner out of Team Dream shop. It's not a bike shop. Russ, you've been there. Yeah. And I was on my Varco build and he's only made a handful of frames. And the guys were like, oh man, what's that? I'm like, what are you talking about? Like your bike's worth like $15,000. Like, why are you asking me? And then I made a joke of like, oh yeah, well mine's like one of like 10. Like, so like it's more rare. And I was just laughing and I was like, yeah. And then I was like, well, aesthetically it looks great. And I was like, I don't want you to miss this. So I don't want to go by too fast. And that's where it was born from,
Right.
Yeah. Yeah. It's like, yeah, you can't enjoy how like all the color coordination and design cues. You can't enjoy that if I'm going, 500 watts up the climb. No, I'm doing like 75 at best. You can enjoy this for about 18 minutes before I pass you. Like
you're doing them a favor.
Yeah. You're welcome. That's what I say when I finally pass. You're welcome.
Really?
Yeah. Publix. Yeah. This is the PSA of gravel. Yes. Yeah.
So here's a question. Do you guys like, there's been, since, we've established gravel bikes are a thing, it's just something created by the industry to sell you stuff. We've been seeing lots of like gravel specific clothing and gear. Is there, I can see where the bikes are different enough, but do we need like gravel specific clothing or shoes? And what would that look like?
Shoes maybe, but like the every time I see an attempt at like a gravel specific clothing ad, I'm always like, wow, what an effort. But like my jeans are like cut off jeans that I hemmed are fine. As long as they fit decent.
Yeah. I think a lot of it, the only thing, actually I just saw in the chat, William Reynolds, no, cargo bibs. Like if I'm going to go in bibs, like 100%, that is genius. I was like, when I saw that, like, yeah, I get it. Does that make it gravel specific? No, like I would have rode those on my road bike. So yes, this genre innovated in that sense, but everything else is essentially to me like either a club fit jersey or it's mountain bike like attire that's slightly more form fitting, maybe on a good day. Like I have Giro like mountain bike shorts, and they're slightly more form fit than a typical baggy. And I love those because they're a great, like Eric did in his video, like they look like a normal short. So I wear them when I go bike packing or whatever else, because I can walk into a store and I'm not, in spandex. So like that's why I like those. And so it's really funny. I think it's just a rebadge. I think most clothing is, minus, like Eric said, the shoes, because for me, and I'm working on a review for these like cycling shoes. I've been working on their mountain bike shoes, but they have more flex in them than some like ultra stiff high end units. But I like that for my gravel bike because you're potentially hiking more, or you're getting off the bike or whatever. So I think they're just rebranding low budget shoes into a higher gravel shoe because like it's got more flex, because like that's more comfortable when you're walking. If you're not, then hell yeah, you want the stiffest, lightest thing.
Yeah. Like the shoes that I ride are terrible. Like they're old times, and like the sole on them is so plastic and so slippery that like when you do, like it's made me a very good bike rider, because like I can't put my feet down, because if I do, it's like I'm ice skating. Like my feet are just like, and that's worse than just crashing. So it's either like I ride a section or I crash. Yeah. Because
Here's an interesting comment from MJ John. Are there different types of gravel bikes like there are different types of mountain bikes? So gravel bikes are already kind of a niche within the drop bar spectrum, and we're even seeing gravel bikes themselves like splinter off. I think there's gravel race bikes, there's gravel adventure bikes, there's aero gravel bikes, and then stuff. And now we're seeing stuff like the Chamois Hagar, which is like more mountain bike inspired gravel bikes. So. What do you guys think of that? Do you think it's getting too splintered, or are they serving a niche?
No, like there has to be choice.
100%.
Just like there is for mountain biking. Like there's people who like to ride, even in cross country racing, people like to have different setups. Like the bikes are similar, but they're certainly there are people who look for the there's people who look for like the shorter head tube, or like they like a certain geometry for stack and reach, and I think those numbers only need to differ very slightly for it to become a completely different bike.
For sure.
Yeah. So, I think the same thing. Yeah. I mean, it's you're gonna have your Cervelo, and it's a race gravel bike. It's got a road similar basically geometry. You're going to have your Fargo, your Chamois Hagars, and then you're going to kind of have that I think the middle ground is kind of where it's the most interesting. Where I think the middle ground right now is the bike packing and tire clearance kind of like balance. Do you guys have like the extremes?
Do you guys have a preferred geometry? Do you like your gravel bike more kind of road cross inspired or more mountain bike inspired?
I'd prefer mine. If I could have if I could have my LA Sprint with room for 45s, like I would take that.
Yeah.
Like I would ride that every day. And I think the Poseidon is close. Like even my Crux, like the first time I rode that, I was like, yeah, this is the answer. Like this is it for me. This is what I would prefer ride.
Yeah, I think for me the same thing. Like I used to have an S-Works Crux back, and I think it was a little more relaxed than the Poseidon that I had, as far as like geometry wise. So I think something kind of in the middle ground, slightly less racy, so that you have the opportunity to do, for me, like the bike packing opportunity, because I think that's really a cool subgenre that some people really love and some people don't. So for me, it's tire clearance and mounts. Geometry doesn't have to be like ultra endurance. Like to me, like I had a Giant TCX compared to the Giant Revolt was like worlds apart as far as reach and stack. Kind of want the middle,
Right.
So I think that's kind of where everybody's going to have their own niche. I think that middle ground is where there's a lot of innovation, because there's a lot of separation right now on what people want.
Yeah.
And I think the race and like the ultra touring, or like, I think are both kind of settled. I think the Chamois Hagar is kind of the first of its kind as far as like really different geometry.
Right.
But I think that's gonna have its own thing, and none of us really know if that's gonna stick. Like that, they were there when I did Grinduro in California. Like I saw the frame,
Yeah.
and nobody knew what it was. I'm like, what the hell is that thing?
You're right.
But I think it's too soon to tell if that level of it is going to stick around or if people are going to just go mountain bike.
Yeah. For me, I actually really like the geometry of the crust bike. You know, I ended up buying I couldn't buy the review sample, but I ended up buying, like, I paid full price for the bike. That's how much I liked it. And the reason I liked it is because it was, I know, isn't that terrible? You know, as a YouTuber, we should just get free shit, right?
Yeah, right.
But the crust is cool because it's, you know, it's got a short rear end, so like 425. So not like super tucked like a road bike, but definitely shorter than like an all-rounder and the touring bike. But the front end is fairly slack, you know, mostly because it's just trying to avoid toe overlap. I don't think it was on purpose, but the trail in the front is a little bit more chill. So I feel like it climbs really well and also happens to descend pretty well because it's not super twitchy like a you know, super road inspired bike.
What size bike do you ride? Like what is?
So I ride a medium. So usually
53 and a half.
No, usually like a 52.
52. Yeah, okay. Yeah.
Like like I've got short legs for my shortish height.
Yeah, I have that same problem.
Yeah, so I'm all torso, no legs. Like, yeah, so I get it.
So what size bikes do you guys ride?
I'm in the same boat, but I'm between a 54 and a 56. Like,
okay.
Yeah. When I find a good 55 and I have the money, I'm gonna have to buy it. Like,
yeah.
that's why I went custom with the Varco cycles, like all road, but it's basically an all road bike now compared to like I called it a gravel bike because again when I did it, it was a gravel bike. Now it's like an all road bike. Mm-hmm. I need a custom geo. Like that was the deal. Like I'm 5'11" with a 30 and a half, maybe 31 on a good day inseam. Yeah. And so like, but I need a 55, 56 top tube. Yeah. So I'm a 56 specialized like geometry or giant because they do compact geometry as well. So I need a very compact geometry for the top tube because I don't have the leg for it. Yeah. So like that's why that bike fits me so well. It's because it's got I think a 52 and a half top or a seat tube, like center to center. Yeah. And then it's got a 55 top. Like I'm like, oh, perfect. You know, like that's what I need.
Not to mention bikes like that look way cooler than like square. I don't like square bikes. Like a 54, I don't like.
Yeah, same. And like I also can't stand over it. So totally, yeah.
Maybe that's part of it. I don't know.
Yeah. It doesn't feel good, and to your mind, it translates. It doesn't look good either. Yeah.
And so, of all the gravel bikes currently on the market, what would you want to personally own if you don't own it already?
I still want that Fairdale. Like, I still want the rocket ship. Like, it's so simple. Here's one thing that I don't think everyone's gonna love, but like I think anything over a 45 on like a gravel bike for like tire size is just too much. Like the mountain bike size tires, I'm just like, I don't know. Like it just happened one day. I was just like scrolling through Instagram and I was like, I don't love that much anymore.
I remember when the Pan Racer Gravel Kings first came out and they were 28s and 30s. I was like, come on. Are you serious? And now it's like, you know, slowly over the years, it's grown. Like the first Chris King open house we went to, you know, everyone was like, you know, 40s huge. And the last one we went to, it's like now they're building around 50s. And it's
I think that's where it differs. Like I have a set of 50s from WTB Ventures. Like I really want to try them, and like the new bike build that I'm doing will clear 50. I wanted to try it because the market's getting bigger, so I get it. There's always gonna be that overlap, and so I think for me, I want to have the opportunity to do it. Doesn't mean you have to, but like I think I just have no idea. The biggest tire I've run out of 700 was a 40. So I want to see, does that make enough of a difference? Because I was on a 40 on my TCX, and then I'd run a 650 by 2.0 in the rear and 2.2 in the front. for like the gnarlier stuff when I wanted more sidewall. And so I think frames that are starting to get in that middle ground for me, like I'm working on a frame with Varco to make that kind of monster gravel cross and a custom geo with some other features I think I want to add. But as far as like if I wanted to buy a turnkey bike, I think that Rodeo Labs Flanimal 5 is very interesting because of the sliding dropout. It clears like a 2.4, I think they stated recently. You know, like it, which is, I would never run that big because it'd just be too slow, like, it'd be, you know, whatever. But like, it's cool. They're innovating. They're trying to go beyond market, which I like. But as far as like a turnkey frame, if the geometry, which I haven't really looked at, would fit me, that would be like the interesting one, you know, out of, I think, everything that I've seen recently.
What about you, Rob? What bike do you want?
Honestly, I just want a titanium version of my crust.
Oh, there you go.
Like I think like the geometry just suits me. It fits pretty good. I'd love to see it in Thai and see if it, you know, comes to life in some different way.
Do you think you would leave it alone, like group set wise, long enough to actually just go ride it instead of
that is impossible.
I feel like Russ, like somebody needs to donate you like just a frame, like something for like just to leave on the work stand, because like Lord knows like you're like, oh well, I want to go ride, but I gotta test out 18 different group sets so I can go do that. Like
yeah, and different shifters.
Yeah. I like this bike. I just have to change the cable housing for the 18th time today so I can go ride it. Like,
you guys don't even know. So like I've been, you know, messing around with the box stuff. I tried 3 different shifters, and then I got the Advent stuff, and then I tried the Advent stuff with the box stuff, and then got the Advent Brifter dialed. And it's got the routing that pops out the side, you know, like the old school Tiagra. Yeah. So I posted a picture of that, and I was content to leave it at that. And then inevitably someone's like, "Why don't you just use a brake noodle?" You know, so that. So then I like had to pull out the wiring and do that and film that for B-roll, so I could just cover all the permutations.
So Russ, since you've ridden the Bear Claw, which is something I'm very interested in trying, if as far as ride from the Bear Claw to your crusts, purely ride, obviously that bike had E-tap, Access, mullet build, but essentially your 1-to-1 gear, I'm assuming, is the same on the crux or the crust. Yeah. So ride quality wise and weight wise, what was your perception compared to the, like, for both?
The Bear Claw was definitely at least like a pound or 2 lighter. What's interesting is the Bear Claw was actually a little bit more chill than the crust. Like the crust was a little bit aggressive overall. Oh, really? Like, yeah. And I don't know if that's because of the titanium. It, you know, it has a tendency, again, I'm going to use the word mushy, not like in a negative sense, but it feels, there's like a slight kind of vagueness to it sometimes. Okay. So in that way, the crust gave more feedback riding, which I think I kind of preferred. But yeah, I don't know.
Because I've never ridden Thai, so I love my steel road bike, but I've never ridden Thai compared to steel. Yeah. So it was a more responsive in steel compared to Thai, you think?
Yeah. Okay. Kind of like how, kind of like the difference between carbon to steel, but in like a very smaller margin. Okay. You know, like how carbon just gives you a little bit more feedback. I feel. Right. You know, you feel like you're on the bike. It just tends to transmit like more like high frequency vibrations. And some people like that. You know, it's not necessarily a bad thing. It's just, you know, to me that's what it is. And I feel I feel like the Thai like, you know, like steel kind of numbs that down, but then Thai took that like to another level.
I like that. Like that sounds good to me. Like I like the experience.
Yeah, so this bike came in by Sage, and if you guys can see the box, this one's Thai also, so I'll get to see if there's a difference between Thai bikes. So
that sucks.
Yeah, must be hard. Yeah, must be rough. Yeah,
I'm excited because I'm not going to fuck with the drivetrain. It's just I just get to ride
it. So cool. Should we acknowledge the title of this video and try and answer that question?
Oh yeah. I was just gonna totally clickbait it all the way
yeah.
through.
Well, hey,
No, yeah.
hey, Eric was talking about how he's all about it. Like,
I love clickbait,
yeah.
but I think it's like I thought about it all day.
Okay, all right, let's do it. So has Gravel jumped the shark? Has it become that indie band that you used to love, and then they became top 40, and then now you're like,
and like all day I was like on Instagram, yes. like for all the popular Instagram people who like have wild amount of followers, who are mostly all like fixie bros.
Like hey,
people.
I'm like a quarter offended because like that was my history. So like, walk yourself.
I have a Vigarelli. Like I do fixie stuff all the time.
Yeah.
Like, have you not noticed that all those people
totally into gravel?
Like the gravel guy, like they all go out and do like gravel photo shoots.
100%. 100%.
You're like, oh man, they're so cool.
Yeah.
And I think that takes away from it a little bit. But like to go ride gravel, like no matter how cool it gets on the internet, like it's still gonna be crazy fun. Like,
oh yeah, I think that's the difference with fixed gear. I think when I started, that was like the stigma. It was like I would go ride my fixed gear bike, and it was like, you know, I'll call it the first 10,000 views of Mash SF. You know, like that was like like the very early, and probably not even 10,000, probably like 1,500. I don't know, but like when you went out and I saw somebody else on the fixed gear, it was like this, like, even if you were across the street from each other, it was like you'd pass each other and it was like the what's up, like, you know, what's up, like this is like the underground.
Yeah.
And I think, yeah. And I think that was what was cool. And the reason I got out of it, minus my injury, was like Walmart had a fixed gear. Like that was just like the pinnacle of like, okay, it's peaked. It's now like we're on the base. Like that's where it's been. And somewhere in between there, like everybody kind of knew what it was, but we would do these group rides, and it used to be this really like cool group of people that I would ride with locally. It was 10 or 15 of us. We all had what, I don't even know what to call them bikes at this point. Like they were track bikes, but they were decently built. There was not a lot of options as far as parts go, but then you skip forward a year and there's kids that are coming out on their conversions that have like, you know, this really sketchy build quality, and we're trying to ride safe and not run red lights, and they can't stop fast enough and they're skidding through it and all that kind of stuff. I'm just like, I don't want to babysit. Like I'm out, like I'm going to go ride by myself. But I think the whole thing with gravel is it's the best parts of cyclocross, because I think the community is very similar, but with the opportunity of like, you don't have to be this like spandex wearing or like Lycra guy, and you can enjoy it. And no matter what amount of gravel or trail that you ride, you're kind of all accepted. And I think that's why I really liked Eric's video. It's like the Tony Hawk reference, like pro skater. I like that. Was like, yeah, you can be in anything. Like I'll go ride my gravel bike in Lycra if it's hot and I, don't whatever. But if I'm going to go do any kind of ride, I'm going to have whatever feels good at that day. But I'm not going to be judged.
Yeah.
So that much.
Yeah. Not yet, anyway.
Yeah. Give it 6 months. Yeah.
Oh, I get. I've been judged all the like.
Oh no, Russ. I fully respect you've made videos about wearing like your long sleeve T-shirts or whatever. Like I've seen them. Like I get it. Like,
we did a go into Target.
Yeah,
shopping for
that was great. That was awesome.
I mean, I do think. Okay, so when we did Dirty Kansas, one of the reasons we wanted to do it was we felt like it was the year after it would get too big. And it turns out like that they sold it to a larger event company, and then it kind of blew up. Like, when we wrote it, like Jens Voigt was there.
Wow.
It was before, Team EF was racing it, but it was on this cusp of, I think, becoming too roady and just all performance oriented. And I feel like since then, you've got world tour riders, riding these events to win, not just for funsies, but they're employing team tactics. And like to some extent, I feel like it takes a little bit away from the events. Like what attracted us to DK was actually the stories of the people in the middle and the back. These are regular people doing extraordinary things.
Right.
But now it seems as if so much of the focus is always on the front, and then it's just road racing at that point.
Yeah,
So.
I I totally see that. I mean, I did a little like few episodes on doing Grinduro when I was not prepared for it. And because of the fires they had out there for California, they increased the climbing like 2,000 feet and minus the mileage like 10 miles or something like that. And me and my buddy Mario did it, and then we camped out, and like Ted King was literally like spitting distance from our campground doing like his podcast like the morning before, like the night before. And we're just sitting there like, awesome, you know? And then so we did it. And it was super hard. Like it was really difficult. We did 5,000 feet of climbing in like, I think 14 miles or 18 miles, something like that. It was like right off the start. And it was great. Like it was crazy. But at the end of the day, it's like we came into the last checkpoint because we had to skip one, and we see Ted King there. Like, yeah, that was awesome. But also we know that like, okay, well, we got timed out of like the whole event to like to come out,
So,
you know?
I'm
like,
curious, like what was the vibe at Grinduro? I feel like I feel like it's presented as like kind of super chill, but looking at the route, it looks like it's gonna punch you in the gut.
I was hurting the entire time. Like again, I made videos about it because I wanted people to know like I came in as a very mediocre at best cyclist into this event. Like I was not trained enough, whatever you want to be. I was not ready for that kind of climbing in that short of distance, let alone the rest of it.
Yeah.
But no, the vibe was super awesome. Like it was super cool. Everyone, like I said, it's like the cyclocrossers do gravel. So there's always going to be the ultra competitive cross racers, the guys that are trying to get podium. And there's also like the guys who just want to like hang out with their buddies and drink beer and like hand you whiskey shots while you're passing them in their, like avocado costumes. Like that's it. Like it's that longer distance. It's not the 45 minutes. It's the 18 hours or whatever the gravel race is going to be. So I think that's really where it is cool. There's always going to be the guys in the front. And I think you're going to be one of those two mindsets. It's either you're racing or you're finishing. And I think that's kind of, exactly. Yeah. I think party pace is kind of in the middle. Like, so I think finishing is like where I usually sit at. Party pace is like, I can enjoy this. I'm not enjoying it trying to finish this, but I think that's really where the three segments are. So I think gravel is that kind of beautiful middle to where you can really meld everybody together. Like after Grinduro, amazing party, great band. The food was cool. I met a lot of great people. And you're in this like camp environment essentially. Right. And you're going to have to meet people. You're going to see people that are around you that are all in the same mindset. The guy that was racing next to us, like his wife chilled out the whole day, and he was on a Canyon Grail with like 35s. Right. And he finished the whole thing like 40 minutes after we showed up, and he did way more miles than I did.
So here's a question. Like it seems like previously before all this COVID, there was press release about some pro discovering his true passion in gravel or bike packing. Right. Do you think like more pros participating in kind of what was traditionally, I guess, like for amateur riders, do you think that takes away from the event at all, or does it add pizzazz to it?
Not to the event, no. The events are something entirely different, right? Mm-hmm. Like, I think no matter what, there's always going to be someone who's going to say they're going to be faster than someone else. Mm-hmm. I love racing. Like, I think racing is the coolest thing in the world. I love every form of it, like biking, cars, motorbikes. Like, I love racing. Mm-hmm. I can be guilty of that. Like, if us three went out and we said we're party pace, like the dickhead that's like half wheeling everybody. So like I inevitably blow up, and then you guys will drag my ass for the rest of the way. But I am that person. Yeah. So like, the racing part, like it would be if I was creating gravel events or any event for that matter. It would certainly be my hope that it went to that level. Like you're like you don't want to be the. I don't think anybody wants to be the indie person forever.
Right. Right.
That's the part that you're like, I'm struggling. This is hard. This is expensive. We only break even every year. Like, we have jobs. You know,
I think I totally think like that's the thing with like all these events. Like if you look at like DK when like Russ, when you did it versus now, like where it's a lottery essentially for almost everybody because it's so big. Like for Grinduro, I met some locals when I was out there. They're like between this and the one in Quincy, California. I don't think they're doing it there anymore. In Quincy, between Grinduro and the fair, that was the whole year of basically like the influx of economy for that town.
Oh wow!
And that was the thing. It completely was a completely different thing. You know, where I think, and it's kind of, what is it? Is it the Land Run 100?
Mid-South now.
Okay. Well, okay. Yeah. Same thing. If you watch the Rafa documentary they put on YouTube, they're like, yeah, our town was bankrupt. We had nothing.
Right.
And this grew us into like where it substantiated, where I think there's so much positivity that can be around it. For these areas that have great trails that no one's ever going to ride because no one lives there. You know,
yeah,
there's cool opportunity.
Yeah, for my super nerdy like tourism hat that I sometimes wear, that's one of the things I really love about gravel is that it's kind of an untapped natural resource for lots of rural communities. You know, unlike you know, in terms of like creating like a tourism attraction or something to host an event, you don't have to raise bond money to build like a stadium or a golf course, right? Yeah, you know, these are pre-existing assets. You just have to reframe them either in a race or kind of iconic routes. And then you can draw people from outside the area. So that was ultimately like one of the other like big hooks of why we wanted to do DK is like we'd heard all these stories of how the race transformed Emporia, that businesses were rebranding to cater to gravel cyclists, that you know people that don't ride were like cheering for all these you know weird looking people on bikes in town. And it's true. Like the festival feel, the way that the community came out was pretty amazing. So YouTube comments. Do you guys have any questions? You have the Alternative Cycling Network.
Yeah, that's it. Yeah. And you know what? We're not. Even though we might have thrown a thumbnail on there, and we've only talked about it briefly, we will discuss your topics that you actually want to hear about.
It was Eric who suggested like clickbaiting it.
Yeah. This is all This is all Eric's fault. Yeah.
And I didn't even submit the face photo that I was supposed to. So
I know. Yeah, I know.
I was almost gonna troll your videos and just like grab a random screenshot.
Oh, that would have been the best.
I think so much that there's so many times where I'm editing and I'll just like stop on a frame of myself like this.
Yeah. Oh yeah. I think every frame.
That's the thumbnail.
Is gravel riding.
Yeah, I think every frame for all of us is pretty much that. Yeah.
Yeah.
No
all right. Okay. So somewhere in the mountains, mechanical versus hydraulic disc brakes for bike packing and or gravel. Thoughts? You guys passionate about one way or the other?
So I'll tell three sides, or all three. So for me, for the money, purely, there is the hydromechanical middle ground. So TRP makes the HYRD. My favorite, honestly, for the money, and I wrote this on my Poseidon, was the Huin, that's JUIN, R1s, which is the same as, Russ, what's the ones you're running?
Yokozuna Ultimos.
There we go. Same brake. The Huins come in flat mount or post mount. You can get them on eBay. They're like $180 with rotors and bolts and adapters and everything. Those for the money, if you're going to do it, or if you have a mechanical disc brake bike, 100% recommend.
They're so good.
Yeah, if you can get a compressionless housing or want to ball out on the Jaguar like aluminum housing, do it. Not necessary, but it's worth it. But let's call it $250 is going to be half the price of going hydraulic if not more than that. So I think for the money, that's the sweet spot. Hydraulic is better. It's going to brake better. It's going to be better for those long descents. But if you're not doing some ultra long downhills regularly, I think that's the kind of middle ground sweet spot.
Yeah, like I think
Oh, Jonathan agrees. Twins are amazing.
Yeah, Hydra's, in terms of just like braking power and modulation, clearly superior. But I still tend to, use cable, those the Yokozunas, just purely from like a maintenance standpoint, and when I have to.
No, seriously, no, but Russ, if you can get a compressionless housing,
it makes a difference. Yeah,
substantially better for those brakes. It's ridiculous.
Sure. Yeah. Someone mentioned Yokozuna reaction cables. Yeah, when I had mine, they were awesome. But then I had to change my drivetrain, so those handlebars with this housing is downstairs. But yeah, definitely. How about you, Eric? Are you hardcore mechanical or hydro?
I think for bike packing, I would lead towards like a good mechanical setup, like Paul clampers and compressionless housing would be my number one. Like good cables, good calipers.
I think that's the one brake I really want to try is the clampers. I've heard great things. I've never ridden them.
Yeah, Laura's got them on her breadwinner. I've not.
Oh, okay.
I've not ridden her bike yet, though. Believe it or not.
Are they sick? Or are they just Paul's? And you're like, man, I love everything they make. So
yeah,
like I just think everything they make is cool, and I'm like,
their canties are insane. Like,
are they good? Like,
the Paul canties, like you literally, if you're running a steel frame and fork, they recommend that you run different canties for the front and rear. Because the flex or the stiffness is so bad that like you'll flex your fork.
Right. They want you to run canties in the back and a mini V in the front, don't they?
Something like that. Yeah. Like it's ridiculous. And so I'd love to see what their clampers are like because again, I've ridden mechanical. I think the hydraulic mechanical is kind of the sweet middle ground, and I've run hydraulic, but I've seen people that love the clampers and they look ultra stiff because they're basically a whole block of aluminum. Like in theory, it looks great. Like I just want to try them.
Like I know what my review would be if I bought them. I'd be like, these are amazing, even if they're not because they're expensive. Like, you just justify it. You're like, wow, these weren't as good as I was hoping. Yeah, no, they're good. They're good.
Again, when you're slowly going downhill, they can enjoy the aesthetic because they're obviously going to be anodized and color matched to whatever else you got going on the bike. So yeah.
So T-Track, Niner full suspension, hot or not? Let's make this a little bit broader. Do you think full suspension gravel bikes a little too much, or you welcome the new full suspension overlords?
I welcome it, but do you remember when 29ers came out?
Oh, I think
26 mountain bike with those wheels look so stupid. There's still some work to be done with. I'm sure they ride great, but like if they want it to look good, they need to do something about the whole package because it's very and it could be better. It just could be better. And I think they need to see that there's certainly demand for it before they can really go down that R&D road to say like, okay, how do we make all of this look more like a road bike and less like a weird like 50 mil travel, dual suspension that we threw Di2 on.
Right.
I think that's one of one of the challenges of the whole gravel genre is that it's so nuanced. It's not as cut and dry as like road bike and like mountain bike. That I can imagine. It'd be hard. It's a hard market to design for because some people want full suspension. Some people will say, well, it's too much. Some people will say it's too little. Some people,
I think. What does anybody know offhand what the Magic Carpet Ride's rear suspension travel is?
We'll see. I'm sure someone will let us know.
Okay, but I'm like, so my thing was on it. Like I saw it at Sea Otter. And the weird part is like that got, I think, in my opinion, less press than the Chamois Hagar, even though I think that's almost as progressive, if not more progressive, because it's dual suspension for, but there are options. Like for me, I love my Redshift stem on my bikes. It's 20 to 30 mil of travel, which is almost essentially what you get out of a Lauf fork, but the stem's $150 compared to like a $900 fork.
Right.
So like I would now 100% do that. You know, it's 150 grams, let's say, more than your stem, but the Lauf is going to be way more than that as far as fork weight.
Mm-hmm.
But as far as rear suspension, same thing with Redshift. They have their seat posts, which I don't know what the exact travel is on theirs. I just don't remember offhand. Okay, all the comments are saying 50 rear. Okay. I don't know what the Redshift is offhand, but even if it's 30, it's
still pretty good.
You can add you can still add that to any bike
for sure,
and not have to buy any proprietary stuff. And I'm assuming that rear shock is like specific to that frame set.
I would expect, yes.
Yeah, I mean, there's no hardtail or there's no full suspension bike that's going to be less than 100 mil of travel. So if it is a less than 100 mil, it's specific to that bike, and it's obviously using more of the stroke. So in theory, it would probably need to be rebuilt a little more often, to where you're buying really proprietary stuff. And
do you guys remember I don't know if they still make it, but the Specialized Future Shock, is that still a thing?
Yeah, that's still a thing. Oh, 100%. The Verge,
okay.
Even the Cirrus, the hybrid bike, has it now.
Huh.
Yeah.
But I thought they did they had to recall a bunch of them because there was something.
Yeah, when one of their Pro Tour riders crashed.
Yeah. No, they redid it. So there's a new version now. It's tunable.
Yeah.
So your top cap essentially is your like basically how stiff it can get. So now on the new, it came out first, I believe, on the Roubaix, and then the new Roubaix, when they redid it, it's basically you can do like a full rigid and like a full suspension version. So once they redid it, it's tunable now. Where before you had to literally swap springs out.
Yeah, it was like spacers or
right.
something.
Yeah, it was a whole spring. So it's still very similar looking, but there's the top cap is essentially like your Eric will get this, like your dampening adjustment on your shocks on your car. It's the same thing. Is it just like you can do full, race rigid, and you can then open it up on the fly, which is cool compared to where before it was, because I used to work at a Specialized dealership when it came out, where you can do like fully open and then have the full whatever travel it is that you have. Yeah.
So Alex asks, what about the Cannondale Lefty gravel bike? Dead.
Oh yeah, what is it? The Slate?
Oh, the Slate.
Yeah.
I have to say I was not a fan of how that bike looked. It hurt my eyes.
Really? I hated it at first, and then I would see it around, and I'd see it around, and I'd see it around, and I'd be like, "Damn it grew on me."
I would completely. Did they ever make a top stone with the Lefty? Anybody?
I don't think.
I don't think so.
The top stone was like the premier bike at Grinduro because EF was there and Cannondale had a booth. So the top stone looked. I mean, I didn't get to demo it, unfortunately, but like that was for the rear end looked great. How they designed it, it was just the bearing. Like Eric was saying, like a less complex version of rear suspension. Theirs, in theory, I think is the best. Couple that with like a Redshift stem to like make the suppleness even front to back, I think is the greatest combo. I just don't know if anybody's put a Lefty fork on a top stone.
No top stone with Lefty.
Okay, well there you go. I wonder if somebody's done it, even if it's not obviously factory. I think that would be kind of interesting.
Maybe. I mean, I would probably buy. What's the other one called? Slate. I would just buy a Slate.
Yeah, there you go. Eric would wait till it's like, it's on eBay and it's
Then I'll get it. Yeah.
So what do you guys think of? Here's another like weird, the whole weird gravel handlebar trend, like the double decker thing by Canyon. Necessary. Come on, I'm expecting Eric to say, "Yeah, I get that."
It's funny, like you think just from like my attitude and how loud I am and like all that I would be such a traditionalist, but like, man, I just love road bikes. Like it took me a little while to even get over like 23s. Like they're like, okay, we're going to 25, and I was like, oh my god,
can't be bothered. Yeah,
and obviously I've come a long way from there. Like I remember not wanting to do tubeless setups, so you please excuse me for not loving the double decker. And also like my track record of like pretty regularly going over the bars and like having my hands here. I just love picturing myself holding that lower section that you're not supposed to hold.
So you break your wrist and your thighs.
Both.
Yeah. Eric would break his wrist and his femurs all at the same time. Yeah, it was a 1-2 hit. I think for me, I've always been, I like to think very progressive, like love new tech stuff. Like I remember going tubeless on my fixed gear. Like that was
wow.
like I like new stuff. I always like new tech. I like the gravel bar. Like I was originally on for my giant, like I think within a month after Easton came out with their AX bars, which was like one of the first few flared gravel bars, bottom. But it took me a year or more to go with the salsa cow chippers. Love them in a 46, and I ride a 42 on a road bike. Bought those. I'm like, oh no, 100% get it. I don't think I'd go 52 or whatever and feel like I want to do this, but you know, I get the wider bar now and I'm a certified body geometry bike fitter.
Okay.
But with how gravel's kind of progressed, there's a lot of new like innovation as far as like geometry and bike fit that goes with it.
Yeah, I'm kind of, so currently or previously I had 46 on the cross, and then I stepped up to the 48. I've got the 52 still hanging out, and I'm working my way up to it.
Yeah.
I need that arm strength, but also like a shorter stem. It's, you know, like even like that jump from the 46 to 48, like I feel like I have to bring it in. I saw an interesting thing on Bike Radar today. Do you know the company Analog Cycles? They're a bike shop in Vermont. Yeah. But they're coming out with a zero.
The zero stem.
Yeah, the zero stem, which is pretty wild.
They've, I think I don't know if it was Nitto or somebody made that, but it was for like the old clamp style. It was either 25.4 or 26, but I think they're the first ones that make it a 31.8 version. Yeah.
Yeah, that'd be interesting. Especially for like those 700 centimeter Walmer bars or something.
Yeah, there you go.
Are these going to be like, what does the stem have? Does it clamp on the top and like fly?
Yeah, so no, so Eric, it basically is like the traditional like stem clamp.
Yeah.
And then if you take the faceplate off, remember the old Dura-Ace like threadless stems basically, or threaded stems?
Yeah.
It's going to have like a wedge in the top when you take the faceplate off to basically cinch. So you get that top bolt, and then it's going to have a faceplate that has a 4-bolt on the top.
So the bar is literally on top of the
Yep. Okay. Yeah. I think that is a lot. I completely agree. So for me, for fit now, and Russ, you did a great video with like comparing it. So my thing now with going wider bar is typically your reach measurement is you capture the measurement of the reach of the bar that you're on. And then you capture, once you do your fore and aft on your saddle, your tip of the saddle to your stem. The third measurement that I add is I'll do tip of saddle to basically the inner part of the hood where your kind of basically here sits. And I'll do that as a third measurement, because essentially if you go wider, that's going to add, and that should subtract from your stem length. Right. So I do that as like from my road to my gravel bike. It's the same as far as that distance, even though the stem length is different, because what I noticed when I didn't do that initially is I didn't like sitting in the drops and turning on a wider bar until I kind of compensated for that. Because in the hoods, it felt fine.
Right.
But when I got into the drops and I'm trying to like yank the bike on a technical trail or like a 180 switchback or whatever, that's really where I didn't like it.
Yeah. Yeah, it's taken some experimentation. Like I definitely think I don't know. I don't know if I'd go beyond 48. I think I'll probably throw the 52s on just for shits and giggles.
That's a lot of bar.
One thing I'm noticing too is that it changes like the handling of the front end, and like in kind of two dimensions, because you have to shorten the stem, so then the steering gets kind of quickened, but then you've also got like way more leverage on the bar, which kind of chills it out, but also I don't know, it's confusing. Like when you ride it like back to back.
Right.
So, let's see. Tyler Hamilton's been asking this question: are electric bikes going to kill the cycling community?
Hell no.
I don't think so.
No.
I would actually buy an electric bike.
Totally. Same.
There's your
double decker bars and electric fork.
No. Wait, Russ, it's the 700 myth, like with double decker drop bar e-bike. That's what we want. Like somebody make that, and then we'll all review it.
I want one. Like I want an e-bike. Like I maybe I don't want such a traditional looking e-bike, but I want one of those.
You don't want the dad e-bike.
Yeah.
I just want, I don't know. Like
you want the one that Fabian Cancellara had with like the little hidden motor.
Well, yeah, okay.
Yeah. You know what? I've seen, okay, so I used to work at a giant dealer. But I've seen Pinarello's, actually they're like main, it's not really a showroom, but essentially it's their headquarters, is actually in California. And I saw their new bike, super sleek looking. They kind of went with the Focus mantra of like rear hub drive, slimmer down tube, less wattage as far as output. We're going to pump you up as a cyclist so you can ride with your elite buddies and you're an average guy, like, and keep up. Looked really cool. As far as for me, for e-bike wise, like I'd want the commuter, like car replacement. And I love, like, I would take a mid-drive over that as far as for that style of bike because of the seamlessness as far as like the input. But no, e-bikes, like I've handled a handful of customers that were, hey man, like I want to get on my bike. And I had one guy, great customer of mine, and bigger guy, just like, no, dude, he got an e-mountain bike. And he's like, I can keep up with all my buddies who are half my weight. I can do the entire ride. I'm still hurting, sweating or whatever, because you still got to put out effort. Right. And he's like, I've ridden double this year because of this bike, because now he's not afraid to go out. He's not worried about being the back of the pack or holding his buddies up or making them late to get home. Like he's on pace, still enjoying it, still getting out there. And that just means like in a year, he's going to turn that, or 6 months, 3 months, 1 month, he's just going to knock it down from turbo to like normal mode. Like that's it. I think that's really where it opens up. Like we all said, we all want everybody to ride. I think that's really where it opens itself up. And there's definitely scenarios where it's beneficial. Like again, if I could work somewhere where I could drive or I could ride to work at let's say a more exorbitant pace than what you'd want to ride on a normal bike, but I could still get some effort in and still get there in a reasonable amount of time and not wake up 3 hours before work started. Like I would totally get an e-bike. Yeah.
I think what changed my mindset was we were doing a gravel ride up to Mount Low in Los Angeles. It ends at like this old abandoned railroad.
Yeah, I know where you're at. Yeah.
You've ridden it. And that first part's like super steep, right? The first 3 miles, it's like 15% for like 3 miles.
Yeah.
And but once you get up to the gravel part, it kind of mellows out to only like 7 or 8%.
Right.
But it's beautiful, right? But you have to be fairly fit to get up there. But when Laura and I were riding it, we saw like this older couple. They're probably, I don't know, maybe mid to late 60s, and they were on like e-mountain bikes. Yeah. And it was cool. Like I was thinking, prior to that, there would have been like no way for them to have, enjoyed that open space,
Totally agree. Or my favorite is I had customers that were not elite, but want to be elite road cyclists. Okay. Guy's doing, training miles. He's doing all this kind of stuff. He gets his significant other, an e-bike. They're doing 28 miles an hour, being able to text, and he's behind them hurting and getting his training ride in. I think that can really bridge the gap for a lot of people. I think that's really cool. I think the older couple going up a climb that they'd never be able to finish, I think that's really where this can really meld a lot of stuff in at any different level. It bridges the gap and makes everybody kind of equal. I think that's a really cool aspect of it.
So I did get, Laura was telling me about this. I was trying to find it online, but supposedly Bianchi's sponsoring the Giro.
Yeah.
And part of that sponsorship is they're doing a e-Giro event or a race.
I've heard of, is that full on for sure. I heard rumors of it, but I didn't know if it's
she got a
100%.
press. She saw a press release or something. On
Oh,
her
then
email.
that sounds legit to me. Yeah.
So we'll see. We'll know.
So like
We shall
like people are gonna race e-bikes.
Yes.
Okay, maybe there's some strategy involved in that. Don't use all of your e-bike power.
Yeah.
Right. It'll be just like a video game, like your little
yeah.
power meter.
No, Eric will get this. Eric, it's like saving your KERS system for like when you got to pass.
Yeah.
Yeah. No, I mean, there's even for California, there's the Over the Hump series, and that's a mountain bike series, and they have an e-bike category. Like it's. I think bringing people into it is bringing people into it. I think the people that maybe get into it initially potentially could get out or in, or they'll save that e-bike for a certain scenario. I think it brings people who might be scared of it. Like when I manage a shop, I wouldn't even say anything. They're like, "Oh, we want to try out some e-bikes." Cool. I wouldn't say anything. I was like, "Just go ride it." Because as soon as you pedal it and you feel like I tell the people like, you feel like you're a professional at like
all the watts.
Like, yeah, you feel like you're just like a pro athlete and you're just breathing on the pedals going down like the parking lot. And I was like, that's the fun part. Like that was cool. And I would just tell them, I would sell them on that. Just like, look, you're putting the same amount of effort into your beach cruiser, but you're doing, 15 to 20 miles an hour compared to like 3 to 5.
I'd want to get one for, we used to do a lot of production filming around bikes and stuff. So, we've got the talent, they're on bikes, and sometimes we're riding these roads where there's no safe way to drive next to them to shoot or to park. So I'd be, I typically have my Brompton. So I'm pedaling this little 16-inch wheel bike.
Oh, damn.
Holding a gimbal with the camera on there, trying to film and just killing myself. Yeah. And, looking back, and if I had like a e-Brompton or e-bike where I could keep pace pretty easily and just concentrate on the camera work, that would have been the money.
And Russ, I can tell you from practical experience, I've done the same.
Yeah.
I had a giant full suspension e-bike, and there's a loop in California called the Fullerton Trail that's super popular. Yeah. And we did this bike group ride, like shop group ride, and I took like the best pictures I've ever taken, like action shots, because I could literally hold the camera, ride at full pace, laughing at people that friends of mine that are like trying to do the steep gravel climb and whatever. Like you can only capture certain moments with the assist. I'm doing, I don't know, 400 watts more than I would normally do because of the e-bike.
Right. And
it allows you, to do that. So where I could race up ahead of everybody, take all the pictures that they ride by or ride with them. And then also if I were to park the bike, take the pictures as they pass, I could then catch up and not be winded. Like that's the beauty of it, to where for production, video or photography, it's like the best thing. For sure. So YouTube chat, any questions about gravel bikes of the non-electric variety? So here's a question for you guys. Has there been any products that have come out recently where you've kind of just rolled your eyes and been like, why? That's tough.
Aside from the double-decker bars, although Eric is down with those apparently.
Yeah. No, you got a set of those coming, right? Yeah.
I don't know what I'm going to use them on yet, but
yeah.
I roll my eyes at like almost every product, but I think it mostly comes from a place of like, I've always been broke. I'm less broke now than I've ever been. So it's like anytime I see something new come out, I'm like, ugh, like something new that I have to try that I'm going to be 3 years behind on.
Yeah.
Like I hate it right now. I hate everything new that comes out. Give it a month. Usually it grows on me. Give it 6 months. Everybody has one. And then, 3 years later, I'm buying all of upgraded to the next things stuff. So I wouldn't say there's anything specific. Maybe there is. I don't know. I haven't been on Instagram in an hour, so.
That's true. That's very true.
There's definitely something that I could screw. Like the Lauf. Like every time I see the Lauf, I don't like the Lauf fork.
Mm-hmm.
Really
but you're cool, the lefty.
Yeah, weirdly. that thing hasn't changed in a month. So
I think the same thing. I think there's warrant for it for everything that's out. I think the Lauf gravel fork doesn't make a whole lot of sense. Do I get the like 60 mil like hardtail version? Sure, if you're looking for like a lightweight versus like a traditional suspension fork, potentially. I think there's so much meld between the mountain bike and gravel community right now that's like it's really strange. But I think out of that births innovation.
Yeah.
I like tinkering and messing with my bikes and seeing what works. So I think right now, like this is this weird amalgamation of where do we go from here?
Mm-hmm.
And I think that category is going to get just split more. But I think that the cycling industry as a whole is delving into this category because it's like the most mass appeal. Like we talked about, the hybrid guy, the road bike guy, both can enjoy this.
I like it because
I
like it because it's unfettered by tradition. Like,
I think it's a great word for that. Yeah.
Let's think about like prior to gravel bikes existing, what was a new release every year? Is a new carbon road bike that was 10% lighter, 5% stiffer. Yeah, and it's like yawn. Like you could write the press release like for 5 years down the line.
It was lighter weight or it was more aero. That was
right.
it. That was completely
so boring. You know, and
it was. You're right. You're right. Like seriously, every bike that did come out, I was like, yeah, I like that.
Like that's why I like the open upper when that came out. That was like the first thing to me that was different. It's like, okay, you're gonna go beyond the tradition because like I think an open or like Cervelo's gravel bike, I don't remember the name offhand, or like BMC's, they're all race bikes with more tire clearance.
Right.
And the open upper was like, okay, we're trying to fit like beyond that. We're trying to go mountain bike status with our tire clearance, but still maintain like a comfortable geometry and not go full mountain bike. Where I think that's kind of where the Chamois Hagar and that bike kind of differ is they were trying to innovate within a space. The Chamois Hagar was like, no, F the space. Let's just go weird. Like let's get real weird with it and throw that wheel 18 feet in front of you and make it work. Like I get it. I've never ridden it, but like, okay, sure. But I think that's where the innovation, like where the open upper has that double drop down crazy chainstay. No one would have tried that a year ago.
Yeah,
2 years ago. I think that kind of stuff or like the Allied with like the weird upper chainstay thing.
Yeah.
Hate how it looks. Do I understand that you can run a double on a 2.2 inch wide 650B? Hell yeah. Like engineering wise, 100% get it.
Yeah, pretty cool.
But
couldn't ride that bike. Like
and beyond just like the frame design too, it's like it's really opened up innovation in terms of tires. Yeah, it used to be your choices were skinny road tire, mountain bike tire, and then like your tires within like that 35 to 45 millimeter range were either touring, so super heavy, puncture resistant, not super fun to ride. But now it's like, okay, now there's like super supple tires that are wide, they're light, they're not, they're weigh like an ass ton. And also gearing, like now we've got subcompact, which I'm a huge fan of. We're not constrained to just the 5034 that it's been coming out on bikes for like the last couple decades.
Yeah, my video in the next week or two is going to be on understanding like how one bike can actually still do road. Because of some innovations with cassettes. But for me, it's like now I think a lot of companies, and again, this is prediction. And for anybody on this chat, like you're going to see this live. So it's going to be, I think a lot of what are considered small mountain bike tires or cross-country tires, I think are going to be rebranded eventually. Because cross-country's gotten crazier. 100%. The cross-country is insane. Like I've seen the courses they run. It's crazy. Like you can't run a semi-slick like you could 5 years ago. Right. But like I'm running a set of like specialized fast tracks and a 2.2. They're 550 grams.
Nice.
that's what my 47 Venture tires weigh, with way
Right.
more volume. Now, are they more puncture resistant? Hell no. But like, it's again, but like that file tread for California right now, like the fast track is like all you really need.
Mhm.
It's not crazy now. So I think a lot of the old tech or old like old tire size, like the 2.0s, 2.2s in the mountain size spec for the guys that are still running maybe a 5-year-old mountain bike, I think are going to be kind of transitioned over, because I think that the gravel tire spec is going to get bigger as it goes for the subsection of our genre. I think it's going to split. But I think companies can kind of reuse their like XC stuff and translate it over.
Yeah. Sweet. Thank you, Mangus 7175. We should figure out a way to split the dollars.
Oh, so Mangus, you just bought us all a Bud Light. I appreciate it.
Yeah.
Russ is gonna ship one tall can of Bud Light out of his 3-pack for all of us.
Right. Yeah.
Yeah.
It's gonna be so baller, guys.
Yeah, that's it. Hey, next Alternative Cycling Network is gonna be just us with all our
just
our tall cans, in a row, or a Camelback full of them, whatever it takes. Yeah.
Yeah. Cool. Well, let me. Any last minute gravel questions before we wrap this up? We're going close to an hour and a half. I don't want to take up everyone's time. Quillstem comeback? Probably not.
No.
But I do like. I think it's Factory 5. They have a 31.8 Quillstem. So if you're gonna do it, or you're gonna convert an old road bike with like modern components, because I've done that with the old Bridgestone RB1, 100% do that instead of running an adapter whole bit.
Okay, John Rubel's been asking this a lot in chat. Gearbox, pinion, roll off, internal gears, IGH for the gravels. What do you guys think?
I could get on board with that.
Yeah.
Like every time I see one of those, I'm like, yeah, absolutely. Like even like, for example, the Tricross I have a 46 tooth cassette on it right now, and I just wasn't paying attention, shifting up into the 46, didn't realize that I'm like a link possibly too short, and it's just like like and I'm like, oh man. Like thankfully I have like 4 derailleur hangers for that bike, but I was like, that could have been like real bad. I was not paying attention, like at all. And like a gearbox, like you don't have that derailleur hanger problem. And like I don't wash my bikes. I don't take care of them. I get like people give me the hardest time. Like, why are your chains so dirty? I'm like, because $50. Like, ride it until it's done, and then buy a new one. Like, so like a gearbox, for someone like me, like I bring all my bikes into the shed when I'm done. I'm like that's why, like there'll be a day of the shed being pretty clean, and it'll get progressively dirty throughout 2 or 3 clean again because I get sick of it. But that a gearbox won't help with that problem, but it'll certainly keep the bike working pretty good.
Yeah. Yeah, I'd like to, I had a Alfine 8-speed ages ago, but haven't had any IGH type bikes in a while. I'm hoping to try a roll-off sometime this year.
Yeah.
If you guys try they're just so dang spendy.
No, yeah, I think that's the thing. Again, reference to my old job, my mechanic, he had a Surly cargo bike, and he rode it from like my area to like San Francisco and back, or to Tijuana and back, and everywhere else. He rode that thing all over the place, and he wanted to roll off. And I'm like, once I understood it, I'm like, 100%. Cool. You can total. I infinite gears essentially, with what you can do a belt drive with. So like no chain cleaning for Eric, and no potential to break it. Like it's such a smart idea, but yeah, it's like. And I understand completely spending double the money on some part than the rest of your whole entire build. But I was just like, it's a hard sell at the end of the day. But like the Alfine, I think they make a Di2 like 1x11 or 12. I don't know if it's 12 or not. Yeah. Like that for a commuter, dude, next, like that in a belt drive, commuter bike, done. Never want anything else.
Yeah. Acoustic Gearhead asks, what are your opinions on dropper posts on gravel bikes / monster cross? I have to say, like this, like last year was the first time I've got a chance to ride bikes with dropper posts, and I was like, I don't know, but as I've tried them more and more, I'm actually becoming a fan. I feel like it's especially depending on how your bike is set up. If it's super aggressive and your butt's way up high and you're in the drops, being able to drop that the seat down, just awesome, both on paved and gravel stuff. What do you guys think? Is it too much?
I like dropper posts.
Yeah.
Like I think they're anything other than like a road race bike. I don't think anymore these days they would look particularly out of place. I think they would look good.
I mean, you see, if you look at those crazy positions like Chris Froome and Peter Sagan, like pedaling on the downhill.
Oh yeah.
Like if they had a dropper,
Oh yeah.
Yeah. I've never done that. That's easier than you think. Like.
Oh no, yeah.
Position.
I think. That's my buddy Mario that you just highlighted in the comments.
Sweet, yeah. We're gonna get Fat Tire, man.
That's it.
Graduated from Coors.
He's my buddy on the Fargo.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
Yeah. No, I think for droppers, for me, the only holdback for me is until I do like a custom geo frame, I can't run a 0 offset on pretty much anything. So most droppers are a 0 offset. So I tried that on my Poseidon, didn't work. So it's tough for me. Like I need a setback dropper, and so as of last year's Sea Otter, Redshift is working on one.
Yeah.
So until like somebody makes a setback dropper, I couldn't run it on a production frame. The frame set I would love in an ideal world to build would have the geometry basically set for that. So I could run a 0 offset carbon post for road or light duty gravel stuff, and then have the option to swap that out later. That would be the kind of goal or dream build if I was going to build one bike kind of deal.
Cool. Well, let's close out on this one interesting question. Fat bike, drop bar, gravel. What's the take? I think I've ridden a bike that's close to that. The Bo Jackson by Bear Claw. It was a plus size, so a 3-inch tire, and there's a lot of like friction to overcome. So you have to compensate with either wide handlebars, short stem, just to kind of make it a little bit lighter in the front handling. Otherwise, it's just you got to wrestle it. I fat bike during the winter in Montana, and depending on like if you're gonna do a drop bar on the snow, it would suck because you don't have the leverage from the flat bar.
Right.
So,
True. Yeah.
What do you guys
think? For me, 2.2 650 is kind of like maybe 2.4. I've never ridden that, but like I think 2.2 volume wise is so much bigger than like the standard, obviously 47, 48, that you're going to get a better ride. I think that's kind of the like where the threshold for me meets. I don't know that for 700 because like 700 I've only ridden 40s, and again I'm waiting for my build to be done so I can do a 50 to see where that split goes, because it might be too much, but I think for me 650 wise, that's really where that split kind of, you're going to increase so much weight after that depending on the tire choice that you're going to have to go lower gear, or something's going to have to compensate somewhere, either in handling or in gearing. I think that 2.0 to 2.2 is kind of the sweet spot as far as finding that happy middle ground.
Yeah. Cool. Well, I think I'm going to wrap us up here, but thank you everyone for joining us in the chat. If you guys don't subscribe and follow Mike from Spin That, Mike from Locked In.
There it is. Oh, that's we're live, everybody. This is live unscripted.
This is how the sausage is made. Eric from Spin That and Mike from Locked In. Be sure to check out their channels. They've got all sorts of good bikey nerdiness that you will enjoy too. And let us know if you guys like this format. I think we're loosely calling it the Alternative Cycling Network.
Yep.
It's kind of a foil to GCN. I mean, what do you guys think? Should we
I agree.
go on Fiverr and have
Yeah.
someone make a logo?
We can we can take the Bud Light money, Russ, and then we can put that towards the logo design and see what we get.
Dude, that's next week is going to be the
That's
ACN logo release.
Hey, you know what? How much do we got like $12. Yeah, that'll make something. Yeah, like
it'll make something. That's for sure.
It'll make something. You should put out, okay, before we go, if anyone in the comments is a graphic designer or likes to think they do graphic design, Russ, do you have your email or somewhere, like something in the description?
Yeah, I'll put the contact info.
Okay, there we go. So if you want to design a logo for all of us, please, we'd all love to see it.
We'll pay you in tall boys.
Yeah. Oh, well, yeah. Can you PO box tall boys? I don't think so, but it's fine. Yeah.
So, all right. With all that, have a good night. Stay safe. Wash your hands, all that good stuff, and keep the supple side down. All right.